Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the ROS Media channel. We're live across all of our socials. So if you're joining us, please let us know that you're there. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, and share the content if you can. Today, guys, we are standing at a crossroads. For years, Ian's pursuit and our pursuit as an organization for true freedom has been a manual, high friction battle against, systems that we've had in place, pushbacks that we've had coming our way. Today, we're not just talking about how do we survive, we're talking about future-proofing what we're doing for us as a nation and for you guys as members as well. So great to have you back with us, Ian. If you don't know Ian, if you're joining us for the first time, Ian Clifford is the founder and president of our organization and our nation, the Republic of Old Souls. And just a bit of a backdrop on Ian, despite facing coordinated sabotage, frozen assets, relentless campaigns of character assassination, Ian has, I feel, has now engineered a real genius level strategic shift in how we're going to be doing things here. Today, we are going to reveal how the Republic of Old Souls is going to move away from human dependent bottlenecks, shall we say, towards a more autonomous way of doing things, powered by what we call agentic AI. Ian, I'm excited to go through this with you, and I think that the members are going to be excited to see what you have up your sleeve as well. So maybe we could just dive straight in. I mean, initially we tend to start with the problem, and if I look at that as far as what the problem is currently, or what the problem is that we've been facing, a lot of this is to do with just the initial sabotage itself, isn't it? The friction that we've had, the barriers that we've had. So I guess my initial question would be, when I was looking at your rollout of this and the documentation that you put together, we've spoken about the environment, this high friction environment that we've been in, $2 million in frozen assets, a staggering 600 million in potential recoupment sabotaged as well in late 2025. For anybody that's listening today, who maybe are also feeling some of that weight, how have these specific attacks that we've endured, how do you feel that they've actually served to strengthen our resolve?
Well, I mean, as much as nobody wants to deal with huge problems and sabotage attacks, and nobody wants to invite those in to what you're doing. And as much as it's very frustrating, and I do get frustrated from time to time with things that come in from left field that that really affect your pathway that you are very passionate about, and my pathway is building the freedom nation.
Yeah.
So anything that comes along that is going to sabotage that, delay it, take it in a new direction that you don't want to go in, or whatever it is, to me is an opportunity. Even though it's very frustrating when these things happen, even though you may wake up in the night wondering what to do or how you're going to do it. We've all had those moments where we've woken up at night thinking about stuff, or you walk around all day long and sometimes you can't work out what to do because there's lots of options, and you haven't quite figured out, you haven't processed the problem enough to know what to do. And I've had several of those events in my journey where massive things have happened that you weren't expecting, that you didn't think you deserved, and you've got to pick the pieces up and move on and maybe go in a new direction. So I tend to go through phases, like I think like all of us do. First of all, you've got to process what's happened, and then you've got to come up with a plan that's going to take you to wherever you were going originally, or a new direction, because maybe you're going to go in a new direction. And it's a process. It's a bit like, it's a bit like grieving. You something major, something very substantial has happened that you weren't expecting, and even if you were expecting it, when it happens, it's like knocks you back. And you've got to process it for a bit of time, and then you've got to figure out what to do. Normally, in my experience, normally it's, even though it appears very challenging and you wish it had never happened, it tends to take you in a better. It tends to take you somewhere better, that you probably wouldn't have been traveling towards in whichever direction it takes you in. You probably wouldn't have been going in that exact direction if it hadn't have been for the major event. So the universe is very, very smart at bringing problems, bringing what appears to be catastrophic events that often take you into a world that is better than it would have been if you'd started the original pathway. That's a very philosophical way of looking at problems. And when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like that at all.
No.
And I have had, in my backstory, I've had 7 ventures destroyed by the regulators and by the establishment. Ventures that I'd spent my, 7-day-a-week work round the clock to build them, and they've been destroyed by, by the establishment. You've got to pick yourself up and you've got to move on. The boxer who keeps being knocked down has got to keep finding the energy to get back up again and carry on. And when you're in my mindset, you see, I'm an inventor, really. I like inventing. I like inventing solutions to problems. And when you spend a lot of your energy inventing solutions, and then you see them getting destroyed, it's a bit like, it's part of you. These solutions become part of you. And as someone destroys them, all that energy you've put into building something that gets destroyed, it does take its toll. So I'm not suggesting that people should invite problems into their world, but when they come, there is normally an opportunity to end up somewhere better, to travel somewhere better, maybe get to wherever it was you were trying to get to in a different way, but in a better way, even though it's difficult at the time. So with the sabotage event from last year, did anybody want that? No, apart from the people that sabotaged for their own reasons. Everyone's got a reason for what they do. I remember, Andy, I watched a documentary years ago about a jail in Texas, and there's about 30 blokes in death row.
Yep.
And they were all there because they had allegedly committed murder. And they were, their pathway was the electric chair. And an interviewer went in, and literally the whole documentary was about each one being interviewed and whether they actually regretted doing what they did, which I think in most cases, if not all, proven beyond a reasonable doubt that they were a murderer. And every single interview followed the same pathway. The guy being interviewed wouldn't accept responsibility for the murder. No. Justified it. Well, I murdered my wife because she did this or that or the other, and she deserved it, so I did it. Yeah. So they didn't deny that they didn't deny the murder, but they justified the reason they did it, and they couldn't be wrong. And I think when people sabotage your organization, they have to have a reason for doing it, and they have to then justify that it was the right thing to do, even though the majority would say it's completely not the right thing to do. The saboteurs would justify it that they did it for what they believe to be the right reasons, in the same way as the death row guys justified murdering whoever they murdered, because there was a in their mind, there was a justification for it, and it was the right thing to do.
Now, you've named these saboteurs. You've named them in your whistleblower reports to the IRS. How do you feel that sort of shift into more of an offensive legal position? You talk about the art of legal warfare. How do you feel that will protect the membership moving forwards then?
Well, you learn from everything that happens, and you have to get stronger. So, I was never expecting that people that were, within our inner circle would go out of their way to sabotage what we were doing.
No.
Given the consequences of the sabotage, given that there's thousands of our members that were relying on getting their recoupments that was going to help them to get out of debt or get out of tax bills or whatever it is that they were expecting to do with it, or just go and get a better lifestyle, just go and finance a better lifestyle, an improved and enhanced lifestyle. The effect of the sabotage was, to me, it was one of the most egregious events that I've experienced. I've had some other ones, but this one was one of the most egregious because it didn't just affect a few people, it affected thousands of people. And there was malicious intent behind it, which to me, it's like the murder thing I just mentioned. It's like there's a malicious intent, and you can't really justify malicious intent.
No.
Not really. Not for me, you can't.
No.
You justify why you do something, but at some point you have to admit that maybe you got it wrong. And I don't know whether the saboteurs would admit that they got this wrong. I think they're going to suffer significant consequences of what they did, because that's in motion. But whether they would regret it, I don't know. Whether they're still justifying it, I don't know. I mean, I know that they were all in a signal channel, all chatting away with each other, and we had our spies in there, if you like, that were feeding me back what they were actually talking about, and they were completely in denial, absolute denial of what was going on. They really didn't understand the consequences of what they'd done. They thought that they still thought they'd done the right thing. They had all justified it to each other, that they were like a band of brothers. They were all in the right. And it was Ian was the villain. It was Ian. It's me. I was the villain of all of it, apparently, according to their belief system that they had developed as a group. It's like a group think that was going on. It was quite extraordinary that even though the facts are staring you right in the face, they still couldn't accept the facts to be the facts. They had to accept their version of what they thought were the facts, which never were the facts, to justify their actions. And I don't know whether they have woken up to the reality yet, or whether they ever will. Probably what they will do is still carry on justifying what they did, like the death row murderers do. They can't just say, "Hey, you know what? I think I got that really wrong. I really regret doing that. And if I had my time again, I wouldn't do it again." But it seems that the ego is so powerful in most people that the ego can't be wrong. So it has to find a justification for whatever it's done, and that appears to be what happened with the saboteurs, from what I can see.
So this active litigation that's going on, in the UK courts and New York courts as well, how do you feel? I mean, our ultimate goal is the freedom plan. We talk about it. I don't think, because of what's happened over the last few months, it's not something that's been at the forefront of what we've spoken about, but it's certainly at the forefront of our plan and our goal. In terms of that as an ultimate goal, the freedom plan itself, how do you feel we remain or can remain operational towards that goal while you are what you've termed, you're in this constructive exile in North Cyprus? You're there, you're on your own, you're in constructive exile. How do you see that pathway moving forwards then?
Well, if you study history, and as I think we've mentioned before, I don't always believe that history is true, but there's some very good stories in history to learn from, and many wars have been fought silently, or what appears to be silently, and often they're wars of attrition. And what's going on with the war that I've been in for a long time is the establishment. They know that they are substantially weak when it comes to the truth about what they did and how they did it to cover up banking fraud many years ago. And they also know that the way that they handled me, the way that they destroyed my organizations repeatedly and undermined my reputation repeatedly, they know that they are very weak there. So their way of removing what they see in me as a threat to their hegemon, their cabal, their agenda, which they sign up for, the same agenda they asked me to sign up for, and I rejected because I didn't like the agenda and I didn't want to join their gang. You see, they see me as a threat. And because they can't use the law to remove the threat, because the law wouldn't support the removal of the threat, they have to subvert the law. They have to manipulate the law. They have to use the law in a deceptive way to try and remove me, which is what the Order 34/2023 is all about. And that's the case that's in the UK Court of Appeal right now. Sadly, I've had lots of experience of court battles. Mostly I'm on the claimant side, but there have been a couple of occasions where I'm on the defence side, and I have had exhaustive experience of what goes on in court battles. I've used the analogy of it's like a tennis match. So it could be over in 3 sets, or it could be over in 5, and there might be a tiebreaker on every set, which could go either way. You just put one ball in the wrong place and you might lose the set. You might lose the match at a critical moment where you run out of energy for a few moments and then you lose the match. So court cases are just like tennis matches for me. They're all different. There's generally 2 opponents. And then you've got an umpire who's supposed to be impartial. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. It depends who you are. If you're McEnroe, maybe they weren't impartial. If you're a bit of a disruptor like McEnroe, if you know who McEnroe is, because I think they are a bit like McEnroe, you see. So I'm the guy who just didn't go along with it. I'm the guy who said no, I don't agree. So I'm a little bit like McEnroe. If you know about tennis. And because that's how I've always been, if it doesn't make sense to me, I'm not doing it. It's as simple as that. Nobody's going to persuade me to do something that makes no sense to me. And that's what they fear in me, because I've got that in my nature. But I've also got the ability to solve complex problems. And because I'm a disruptor with the ability to solve complex problems that other people wouldn't probably tackle, I'm a bit of a threat to what they're doing in terms of definitely on the Monopoly Board of Commerce. So their way of trying to deal with me is to use tactics like propaganda. That's one of their big ones. Like undermining my reputation, like freezing all my assets. So $2 million of assets frozen. For most people, that would probably put them out of the game. And a constraint order that freezes all your banking, most people would probably not find that very easy to deal with, right? They would struggle badly with that. Moving to the other side of the world for a year to regroup, which I did in Indonesia, most people probably wouldn't want to do it, or may not even be able to do it because they might have all their family with them. You know, I don't have a family, so I didn't have that constraint of moving a whole family to Indonesia. Coming to North Cyprus, you know, it's only me. So it's not much easier for me to move about. Is it something I want to do? No. Did I choose to do it? No. But I will do it because it's the only way I can carry on working on the Freedom Plan. And, you know, the alternative is to sit in a cell, literally, and 23 hours a day be locked in a cell and not have access to a computer and not have access to your phone or anything. And I don't want that, because that isn't going to achieve the Freedom Plan. That's going to destroy the development of the Freedom Plan, in my opinion, because I know what I want to do with it, and I've got the drive and energy to bring it about. I don't think anybody else has got those components that I know of. So if you took me out of the equation, would the Freedom Plan be delivered? Some people argue no, and you know, it's a be a good debate to have. But I think it's the probability of it coming about without me being at the head of it is much lower than it would be if I'm at the head of it.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, let's talk about what your plans are, because as we've said, the Freedom Plan is the ultimate goal. But the question is, how are we going to get there? Because the way that we've been doing things is not the most efficient pathway to get us from A to Z. And what I want to talk about is this new method, this new structure, this new strategy, where we're going to sort of abolish the old, bring in the new. So let's talk a little bit about that. You know, this whole meeting about a meeting culture, as we've called it in the past, and the inefficiencies of that. You know, you've been very, very transparent about the way that we've managed projects in the past, you know, using Jira, using scrums, manual meetings. You know, it's an efficient drain, isn't it, on the team? It's an inefficient drain on you, on the team. People are burning out. You know, we're all human. Why do you feel this old way of working, why do you feel it's no longer compatible with just the urgency of what we're trying to do here and the mission that we have?
Yeah, I mean, just before I get into that, I mean, there's the UK Court of Appeal case, there's the case in New York. They are connected together, even though I don't want them to be, because of Order 34, 2023. And then you've got an IRS investigation into the saboteurs. That's not me setting that up. That's the ERO setting it up. And then you've got this attack in Wyoming, you know, which is part of the sabotage. It's another sabotage attack, which all four of them are interrelated. So, you know, before we get in, and I will get into this subject now, but there are four events going on. It's like in every war, you've got battles going on. You've got four battles going on in a war. The war is the same war, right? It's one war, but four battles. So you've got the war is to get rid of Ian, right? That's the war. That's the objective. Get rid of Ian, and get rid of Ian, what Ian stands for, and get rid of his organization. That is the war. That's the objective of the war. It's being fought on four battles within four battle fronts, with the exception of perhaps the IRS, because the IRS battle isn't about get rid of Ian. The IRS battle is looking at the saboteurs, but they're all interrelated. There is a connection between all of them. You could say, maybe I'll correct myself, there are three battles trying to get rid of Ian, and there is one battle which is to address the sabotage. But they are connected. They're all interconnected. So when you're fighting a war, in the art of legal warfare, you've got to know the enemy. You've got to put yourself in the shoes of the enemy. What would you do if you were the enemy? And I've put myself in their shoes. You know, their agenda, their objective is to bring in a control system, as we've mentioned many times before. And they've got, you know, layers and layers and layers of plans that are all being rolled out all around us all the time. And what we're doing isn't trying to stop them from rolling it out. What we're doing is carving out our own environment so that we have our own systems. That's my solution to their agenda. It's not to fight them. It's not to think that you can go to war with the cabal, with those that control the planet, because I say they're too strong. I say they've been planning it too long. I say that you can't beat them by going to war with them. I say that the best way is to avoid them. And that is the only way you can avoid their agenda is to set up your own infrastructure on every level that is important. And that's my plan of that's the freedom plan in a nutshell. And you become a peaceful, small group of people that have come together for a common goal that are not causing friction with those that have got the global, the agenda to, the worldwide agenda that they're running. You're just operating over there like the Amish do. You're over there doing what you do, and you're not really a threat to what they're doing.
No.
And for that reason, I believe that the plan has got merit, as opposed to let's fight them on the beaches. Let's go and burn all the government buildings down. Let's go and march in every capital, and let's go and get tanks and go and get an army and all this kind of stuff. It's just not going to work because the people are never going to be organised enough to be able to make it work. I mean, a lot of people say, well, if we all rose up and said no, then they couldn't bring the agenda. They couldn't make the agenda work. Well, how are you going to get everyone to stand up and say no? It's nearly impossible. I think it is impossible. So my solution is not to say no. My solution is to use their system against them, but without going to war. Just peacefully use their system, build your own infrastructure, operate peacefully away from what they're doing so that you're not a threat to them. And then hopefully they leave you alone, which is what they've done for the Swiss, for the Tibetans, for the Amish for a long time. That's my plan. It is based on some, empirical track record of that peaceful exit working. That's my plan. It may not work. Who knows? But to me, it's better than going to war with an enemy that you're never going to defeat.
Yeah, 100%. No, I get that. So moving over to the actual processes that we want to put in place, then the legacy management that we've done. Let me kind of go back to that one more time. Then, as far as using the old tools and manual meetings and scrums and Jira and all these different things that we've been using. We've had, it's been a drain on people. We've had, people be burning out, just long hours. We're all human. Everybody has a limit at some point in time. So why do you feel, despite the symptoms that we've seen, why do you feel the old way of working is just not compatible anymore with what we're doing and the urgency of the mission that we have?
Well, it's not that it's not compatible. It still works, right? But there's always a better way. I remember many years ago when I was a young kid, I remember having a chat with my mum, and she said to me, because she used to call me B, she said to me, B, why do you always ask why? Why are we doing it like this? And my answer was, well, maybe there's a better way. And I never accepted however it was, whatever was going on. I always used to say, why are we doing it like this? I remember my dad working on an engine in our garage, and I was standing next to him watching him because he was an engineer, right? And he was taking the engine apart. And I said to him, Dad, why are you taking it apart like that? And he lost his temper with me. And he said, look, I know what I'm doing. You don't know what you're doing, so shut up. Right? I remember him saying it, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't asking him because I was criticizing how he was doing it. I was trying to find out what he was doing so that I could maybe suggest to him a better way of doing it.
Yeah.
I always think there is a better way.
Yeah.
It's just been with me all my life, right? So I think too many things happen. People learn from other people, right? In my experience, right? There's cultures, there's ways of doing things that people copy. and that becomes common practice. And common practice catches on, yeah. And then, if you want to get something done, people say, well, this is the way you do it. And that's the way that everybody else does it. Well, I say, well, why is everybody doing it that way? Maybe there's a better way. And that's partly why I'm a disruptor, you see. Because I say, if everyone's doing it that way, there's probably almost certainly a better way that those people doing it that way haven't seen, because they're not looking. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
They're not looking for a better way. They're just doing what they do because everybody around them does it that way. That to me is the herd, yeah? The herd goes left, the herd goes right. Does the herd actually know why it goes left or right? No, it just goes left and right. And I say, why is it going left? Why is it going right? Because that's my brain, right? It questions everything, right? It's like, why are we doing it like this? Why can't we do it a different way, a better way? If there isn't a better way, fine, we'll carry on doing it the way we're doing it. But in my 42 years as a start record in building things and working on projects, I've always learned from what I've done that there is genuinely, there's always a better way. I think a lot of the time there's two components as to why people do what they do. One of the components is that they get used to it and they don't want to change. So they get very used to doing things the way they do them, and they really don't want to change because change could be a bit scary. It's a bit scary and maybe it's more difficult to do it a different way. Maybe you've got to learn something that you really don't want to invest your time into learning something. Maybe the new way isn't going to work, so you just stay with the old way because that seems to work, right? And I'm going to tell you two little stories to bring this into a bit more clarity.
Okay. Love a story.
So I was building my wealth management business years and years ago, and it was originally a partnership, and there was two partners, me and another guy, and then it ended up there were three partners, and then I went in my own direction. When there was two partners at the beginning, we had, because it's many years ago, early 80s, we had Rolodexes on our desk, right? So we had this box with a roll of business cards.
Yeah.
And in it, all the people that you were working with and advising, I was doing financial advice, you had a card and it was written out on the card what their name was, what their wife's name was, what their kids' names were, what their age was, what they were interested in. So you had like a profile of each of your clients. And I had a lot of clients, so you couldn't possibly remember all this stuff, right? So you wrote it on a card and put it in an A through Z Rolodex. So you could go and find them. If their name was Brown, they were in B. If their name was, Smith, they're in the S category, whatever it was, right? So that's how we used to do it. And then we used to type letters to our clients, literally sitting at a typewriter, typing them up, making an error, getting the old Tipex out, putting it over there, retyping it when it was dry, blowing on the paper for the Tipex. I mean, many people don't even know what Tipex is, but literally we used to do it like that. And then we'd send individual letters to our clients about something, right? So we'd go down the post office with a wad of envelopes because we're going to send a communication to all of our clients. And anyway, I was looking around at one time and I saw this computer. It was very early days of computers, and it was talking about word processing and databases. And I thought, well, I'm going to have a look at that and see whether we could bring that into our partnership and start using it. So I went and looked into it, and it made absolute sense to me that we needed a word processor, that we didn't need to use the typewriter anymore, and we could send. An email had started to become popular, right? So we could send all of our clients an email as opposed to putting these letters in the post. Literally, type a letter and go and put it in the post. That's what we did in the early days. Now you could type something up on a word processor. If you got it wrong, you could correct it on the screen, and then you could take it into your email system and you could send everybody an email. And it's like, to me, why would we not want to do it like that? And my business partner said to me, yeah, but that word processor is a bit expensive, Ian, isn't it? That database, it's a bit expensive. We're going to have to load all the data into it. It's going to take us ages to put all the data in there. What we're doing now works. Why don't we just stay as we are? And I said, because this is a much better way. It's going to give us a lot more efficiency. It's going to give us more time to actually spend time with our clients, as opposed to writing letters and going down the post office. Wouldn't it be better if we had more time face to face with our clients? Because we used to do physical meetings back in those days. We'd have more time to actually see our clients and help them solve their problems, rather than typing letters. And because we didn't have it, this is very early days, we didn't even have a secretary or an administrator. We used to do all the admin ourselves. So we did everything from A through Z. So this was really early days. And he was resolute that we didn't need a word processor and we didn't need a database, because what we were doing was working. We didn't need to change it. So that's like two little examples: word processing and a database. Now, if you went to any organization today and said, "I'll tell you what, I've got a really good idea. I'm going to put in front of you a Rolodex, and I'm going to put in front of you a typewriter, and I want you to use a typewriter and a Rolodex. Forget the computer, forget the internet, forget the email, forget WhatsApp, forget AI, forget all that. Here's a Rolodex and here's a typewriter." I don't think many people would say, "Well, thanks, Ian. You've just brought me the solution to what I'm looking for."
No.
I don't think you're going to get that many people. And the youngsters would go, "That typewriter belongs in a museum.
Yeah.
What is that thing with those keys on it? What do we need that for?" So, what I learned then was that people are generally afraid of change. They get used to doing it the way they do it.
Yeah.
There might be a much better way of doing it, but they don't want to go into that much better way, because that much better way, even if all the evidence suggests that this new way is much better, much more efficient, it's different from what you're already doing. And people are afraid of change, because change might, and it could be worse than that. It might even be that change makes them redundant.
Possibly.
It could even be, it could even be, if you go down this new way of doing it, then the organization doesn't need me anymore, because this new way of doing it's going to make me redundant. So we're going to resist it.
Yeah.
And it could even be that. And when you look at any new technology that comes in, I think there is a period of time where there's a lot of resistance to bringing in anything new. I mean, you could say the same. I can imagine Henry Ford having dinner with his wife, and he's talking about, I've got this great big factory and we've got all these blokes manually putting these cars together. And I want to bring in a production line where it's all done it's all automated as much as they could back then. And I can imagine him having a chat with his wife and saying, "I'm really frustrated because the workers don't understand how much better this is. How many more cars we can make, how many more customers we can service with the car. And you know what? The price of the car is going to come down because we can make it that much more efficiently. So therefore we can reduce the price, which is good for the market and it's good for the consumer." But the workers are telling me they don't want this production line because they like doing it the way that they do it. They have been doing it their way for a long time. They don't want the change. And I can imagine, I can picture that dinner table, and I can picture Henry Ford having a chat to his wife, and his wife going, "Don't worry about it, dear. I'm sure they'll come round to it eventually." I can imagine that conversation going on. Because, what car factory now in the world would, unless you're building a bespoke car, would put all the components together manually? I don't think there is a factory like that anymore. So
no.
You know,
No.
these things are inevitable. Progress is inevitable. Change is inevitable. I think there are three things in life that are inevitable: death, tax, and change.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Now, you mentioned that, when we look at the data, when we look at sort of the internal metrics of what we're doing here, and how critical that is to the protocol rollouts as well. Previously that's taken quite a length of time, anywhere between sort of 7 to 12 months to actually get something properly rolled out. How do you feel that delivery gap has impacted members and even impacted the team here?
Well, you see, members come on a webinar and I talk about a solution to their problem, and then they want to engage with it and they want to get on with it.
Yeah.
So, for example, a year ago, I talked about US tax discharge, proven to work. Yeah, you get a little bit of pushback, but it's a proven way of discharging US taxes. And although we didn't get huge demand for it because it wasn't really marketed and promoted that much, it deserves to have. It deserves to be available for the membership. I developed the concept of the commerce protocol. So you've got this amazing protocol that can solve the problem of businesses not wanting to reveal what they're doing, the track and trace of everything they're doing, the taxes, and transform their productivity through spending and recouping signature credit. And those people who've got their head around that, because it took a while for, as all new things, it takes a while for people to get their head around. It takes many months to deliver that, and it took about a year to deliver the tax discharge protocol. Now, it's not because people are sitting there reading the newspaper or filing their nails. It's not because of that. It's because there's so many projects all running in parallel, and there's in all organizations, unless you're only doing one thing. If you're doing multiple things in parallel, which we are, then you've got competition on what gets worked on and what doesn't. And invariably, there is always going to be an element of inefficiency because all of your team that is working on multiple projects in parallel, they don't know how to prioritize their time. So that's one of the things that I've observed, right? And I have got extensive experience of running big organizations. So I know, I'm not talking theory. I haven't read a book. I've been in it. So I know what goes on, right? So you get a lot of people working on projects that aren't working very efficiently. They are working, but they're just not working that efficiently for two reasons. They either don't know exactly what they're doing in the big picture sense, because they can't really figure out what they're doing and how it fits together with other things that are going on around them. So they don't really have a comprehension of what they're doing and how it fits in. That can be an issue, a lack of comprehension. And then the second issue is, and this is the big one, right? The big one is how people do things.
Yeah.
Now, it's not you can have a system that is, what are you doing, and you can tell everybody what to do every single day, and you can list out to them, what are you doing, right? Like, you're doing A, B, C, D, and E, and F, and G, and you can tell everybody every day what they're going to do. If you had that system, right, you could literally have a message that pops up on their screen every day. This is what you're doing. You're doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? And if you sent that message to 100 people in your team, some people would do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and by the end of the day, they've completed the whole thing. And other people would do A, B, and C, and get C completely wrong and never get to D, because they didn't really know how to do it, right?
No.
And that's where most projects take too long, because what happens is the people working on the individual components of a project often don't know how to do it, or they do it in a way that is inefficient. Or, and what can creep in, is that they're not really motivated to get the project delivered, so they go and do something else which they're more motivated to do, which isn't the project. So they get distracted doing something else, which has got absolutely nothing to do with the project they should be working on, but they get drawn into it, and they invest their energy and their time and their focus on whatever it is that is really nothing to do with the project that they're supposed to be working on. So you get everybody could list out what to do, but that doesn't actually get the job done.
No,
it's the how you do it, and it's the focus on what you're doing that gets the job done, right?
Yeah.
So it's what, how, and focus, right? It's three things. Now, if I'm a footballer and my job is to run the midfield as a central midfielder, because that's what I used to do when I was a footballer, I'm trying to run the midfield, right? Yeah. And if I'm spending most of my time up front trying to score goals, then I'm not running the midfield, am I? If I'm spending all my time in the back four, then I'm not spending my time in the midfield. Now, it might be very easy for me to spend my time up front or in the back four or in the back line. And I might do a really good job in the forward line or in the back four, but I'm still not doing the project that I was given, which is to run the midfield. And so therefore the midfield gets overrun and we lose the match, even though we've still got 11 players.
Yeah.
And all of those 11 players walk off the pitch covered in sweat, and they've put a real good shift in, but we lost the match because Ian is meant to be in the midfield, and he spent half his time up front and half his time in the back four, and he wasn't doing his job. But he did a job, and he came off the pitch. You know, he was completely knackered because he played his heart out, but he didn't do his job. And that is often what happens with organizations. People play their heart out, but they don't actually work on what the project that they've been given. They work on other projects that might look a bit more attractive, or they might get drawn into them because there's some kind of emergency going on and they get drawn into them. So in my experience, if you want to get the job done, you've got to know what people are doing. You've got to know how they're doing it. And then they've got to stay focused on the job at hand and not get drawn into all these other things that may well have merit and may well be very interesting and may well be completely, from the person observing, it looks like they're really working hard, but they're still not doing what their project has directed them to do.
No, so I get that.
That's what I see, right?
Okay. I think also that there's a knowledge gap as well. You know, there's a knowledge gap where members watch webinars and obviously they lack the technical ability to execute this for themselves, which is why it's a facilitated service. But also when we're to some extent reliant on members doing certain things at a certain time, if there is that knowledge gap and they lack the ability to do that, that adds to the bottleneck too. I mean, why do you feel that this human-to-human delivery has reached its limit in solving that type of a problem as well?
Well, when you look at the goal, you know, my objective is to build a sovereign nation with up to 500,000 envoys within a nation, with its own infrastructure. That's my objective. At the moment, we're working on commerce-related stuff on the Monopoly board, and we're working on the art of legal warfare, and we're working on helping people to navigate on the Monopoly board. That's what we're currently doing, but that isn't actually the end objective. That's not the vision that I've got. It's a stepping stone towards that. It's a component part that you need to do at the moment to take us towards the freedom plan itself. If you're going to run an organization, or if you have a system that is going to run an organization up to 500,000 in it, that's pretty big. That's bigger than most. You take all the really big corporations. That's bigger than all of them.
Yeah.
If you're going to deliver services, if you're going to deliver, all of the different infrastructure services to all of your envoys, if you're going to have a community that's working together in not only in communications but in services as well, you're going to interrelate with each other. You need a pretty decent system to do that with. If you're going to roll out, energy systems to your hundreds of thousands of members all at the same time and envoys, how are you going to do that if you're doing it manually? So you see, I'm a visionary, right? I look forward and I see pathways. I see lots of pathways, and I see that if I had stayed working with a Rolodex and a typewriter when I was in the early 1980s, I never would have built a financial services organization that was the third biggest in the UK at its peak. It would have been impossible.
Yeah.
So that's what I see here, right? I see where we are right now. What we do works. It does. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It takes too long to get many things that I want to get done. Take too long to get done because there's many competing projects, and there's bandwidth, and there's sabotage, and there's lack of resources, and there's all sorts of things that create the delays in delivering to the members. So there's only three options, right? You surrender and say it's too difficult, so we're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
You say, well, we're just going to have to carry on the way we are and put up with all these frustrations, or you find a solution that's going to make you more efficient. It's going to bring in an optimal efficiency so that you can deliver to your membership and you can deliver faster to them without having to exponentially grow your infrastructure, because we can't afford it. Because we can't go out and hire loads of different people. And even if we did, there's a fallacy in that. I've seen, many years ago, when I was building my financial services organization, I made the mistake of saying to my department heads, if you like, I had different departments like we have here. And I made the mistake once of saying, right, you've got an annual budget. Here's your budget. And you can go and recruit resources within that budget, right?
Right.
What did they do? They went and recruited resources, yeah? And did we need all those resources? No. But once they got all those resources, they couldn't then operate their department without all the resources. Even though we were operating before the resources were recruited.
Yeah.
Additional ones.
Yeah.
Once the additional ones came in, then it was like, well, we need all these people, because if you want us to deliver in, we need all these resources. And that's like, well, you didn't have them before, and we were delivering before. So you see, I've been through that experience, and then I've also been through when I had to cut my financial services organization right down in size because of the sabotage that the FSA brought to me in 2010. I literally devastated my organization. I still kept my teams together, but I had to scale them right down.
Yeah.
And go in a new direction. And many of the resources that left because there was no role for them anymore, it became very clear to me that a lot of the resources that I had in my heyday, weren't actually making that much of a contribution, really. If I can be candid, if I can be tactical, if I can be pragmatic, right? They were
You
just
didn't
along
miss
for
them
the
after
ride.
they'd gone, in other words.
Yeah, they were on the journey. They weren't really making a big contribution. And then I had another experience where I had to cut 30% of the workforce because of an event that happened. And we
That's a
didn't
big
actually
cut.
notice any change. It took a little bit
Wow.
of time to remove 30% of quite a large workforce I had in a one of the ventures that was ultimately destroyed by the government. It's the Home Information Pack venture I've spoken about before. I had to remove 30% of them because of budgetary constraints. And we actually didn't notice much of a change at all. And even within what was matrix freedom, we actually removed 30 of our resources at one point, and we didn't actually we didn't notice really any change, any substantive change in the outcome for the members. There might have been, there could have been consequences internally, but the membership didn't see anything detrimental by removing those resources. So add all that together, right? And it's a very long-winded way of me saying efficiency isn't about recruiting more and more resource.
No.
Efficiency is about working smart. Efficiency is about knowing what you're doing, how you're doing it, and actually do it. Focus on doing it. If you do those three, then you won't go wrong. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how you're doing it, and you're not actually focused because you can't be, because you don't know what you're doing and how you're doing it, you're never going to get the job done, are you? You might know what you're doing, but you might not know how you're doing it. And or you might know what you're doing and you might know how you're doing it, but you're not actually focused on doing it. So you've got to have all three components to get anything done, in my opinion. I mean, imagine if you wanted to cook a cake and you got all the ingredients out on the side and you knew exactly how to make the cake, but you never actually mixed the flour and the eggs together because you got drawn into watching the TV. So, you know, and then you're you know, the cake never gets put in the oven, and then somebody comes and says, can I have a slice of cake? And you say, well, no, it's actually on the side there. I haven't mixed up the eggs and the flour yet. And that's exactly what happens in projects. It's not necessarily that people don't know what they're doing. It's that they don't do it. It's either they don't know what they're doing or they don't do it. They go and do something else.
Well, let's talk about the solution. I think we're all clear on what the problem has been, what the challenges have been. So moving away from the old way of doing things into the new way of doing things. And ironically, we're going to be using one of the cabal's control mechanisms to achieve that freedom as well, which is AI. Yeah. So I want to talk about this AI revolution. I think a lot of people are genuinely scared about AI. They view it as a threat. Again, it's new. And like you said, people fear change, don't they? But this Google Gemini agentic system that you've spoken about internally with the team here, myself and everybody else, and then also an Ian Clifford avatar, really excited to talk a little bit about that and that as a concept, as an idea, and how that would roll out as well. In terms of the Google agentic system, your plan is to replace kind of just static tracking of how things are going with this Google Gemini agentic system. Could you just, for anyone watching and for the members, could you explain how that system works across the entire organization when it comes, I guess, from a data perspective, you know, when it comes to how does it interact with the data in terms of projects that are under management? How does it eliminate lag? How would it reduce delivery time?
Well, yeah, I'll go into that. But just before I do, I don't want anybody watching this to think that we're surrounded by a team that doesn't do anything. We've got some very hard-working people. We've got some very dedicated resources. We've got some amazingly efficient people. I'm not saying that we've got a whole team of people that are just sitting around watching the TV. We really haven't. We've got a lot of people who work round the clock to get things done. But That doesn't mean that it's optimally efficient just because people work hard, because you can work hard and still not get the projects delivered because your effort is not being employed in the optimal way. So it's not always about working hard. You've got to work smart. Yeah. Working smart is way more smart than working hard in many cases, right? But I don't want anybody watching this to think, oh, the reason why we haven't got this and that and the other, and they're a member, is because Ian's got a load of lazy people who don't bother to get off their arse and turn up. Because we haven't got that problem. Nobody doesn't turn up. Nobody's lazy. It's that they're not working with optimal efficiency and with absolute certainty of knowledge that what they're doing and how they're doing it is the optimal way to get the job done. That's where the problem is, right? So that brings me nicely into Google. I want to give you another example, Andy. So just imagine, right, that there is a world out there somewhere where there has never been a library. There's never been anything written down. There's never been any TV or internet. There's just a population that only knows what is going on in their immediate field of influence, right? Okay. So if you think of a tribe in the middle of the jungle.
Yeah.
Right. So picture that scene. They live in the jungle. They know they are absolutely amazing at living in the jungle. They can survive, they can eat, they can have a family, they can do what they do in the jungle.
Yeah.
But they don't know about what's going on in the, in the more developed world. They know about the jungle. So if you imagine a world where it was just little villages, and the only thing that the people in the village knew was what goes on in the village.
Yeah.
There's no library, there's no internet, there's nothing. It's just what's going on in the village, right? Or in the tribe in the jungle. And what you used to have is the elders, didn't you?
You did.
So if you wanted to know something, you'd go and talk, maybe you'd go and have a chat with one of the elders. Yeah, so that guy who sits there with the pipe, sitting there around the fire, who'd been around a while, might know the answer to the question that you've got, right? Or maybe it's some guru in the village that everybody goes to because she's a bit smart, right? So you've got this lack of knowledge, and maybe the knowledge is only with one or two people in the community, right?
Yeah.
And then imagine that the guy who's sitting there with his pipe, or the guru in the village, actually doesn't understand how to get the job done, doesn't really get it, doesn't really understand it, but they sound very convincing. Right? So imagine that you're one of the villagers and you want to know how to do something, and you're asking the guru, who may not know how to do it anyway, but sounds really convincing. Right? So if you then extrapolate that out and say, what we've got in the world is a lot of villagers who think they know what they're doing based upon the guidance from somebody or something, the guru, the teacher, the internet, the library, but they don't actually question whether the library has got it right, that the guru's got it right, the teacher's got it right, because they don't actually have any other evidence, so they don't even look for the other evidence to figure out whether what they're doing and how they're doing it is the most optimal way. Now, I'm going to give you another example. Let's imagine that the world is the way that the world appears, right? All these different countries with all these different communities in all these different countries, and somewhere in the world, in some pocket of the world, there's some people doing something doing a project with amazing results, off the chart, amazing results, getting things done really efficiently. But the rest of the world doesn't know this because they're not connected to those guys in that community that are doing it that way.
Yeah.
So they don't know anything about it, right? In the rest of the world, it's in the darkness in terms of that knowledge. Now I want you to imagine a system that can see everything that's going on in every part of the world, not only in what is going on now, but what has been going on in the past, and can evaluate the best way of getting things done. So if you want to make that cake that we talked about earlier, it might say, don't whisk the eggs for 5 minutes, whisk them for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Because 5 minutes is going to make the cake too fluffy. It's not going to set properly. I'm not a chef, by the way, so maybe that's a load of nonsense. You get the point, yeah? It knows exactly what the best way is to do everything, because its knowledge base is not just the village or the guru. Its knowledge base is the entire world of history of similar things, which are very, very similar, if not the same. How to do things. Now, if you look at innovation, if you look at inventions, somebody invents some gadget. Somebody invented, a mobile phone. Let's just make it really simple. Somebody brings a mobile phone out. I think it was Nokia. I think it might have been Nokia. They brought a mobile phone out. Within a year or so, you've got every other electrical company with mobile phones.
Yeah.
How did they know how to build the mobile phone? They went and copied Nokia.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean to say that Nokia got it right, because not that long after, you had the iPhone come out. And then most people jumped on that because that was better than the Nokia phone. And Nokia went into out of business, as far as I know, as far as in my memory serves me. So you see, what an AI system can do is it can look at all of the records, all of the ways of doing things, and it can tell you what the best way to do this is. Whatever it is that you're trying to do, it will evaluate and say, do it this way, because this way has got the highest probability of working. It might not be the only way of doing it, but in its database, it's been proven to be the best way to get the job done. Now, I don't think anybody can say that they have got in their own knowledge base, their own personal knowledge, they know the best way of getting anything done.
No.
Even if they were confident that they thought that they knew how to make that cake, they couldn't swear that that is the best way of doing it out of all the other ways that might be available. But the AI system will know what the best way is. And it will also be able to draw on research that would ordinarily take ages to find. So pre-internet, the only way you could find out anything, and I was there, I remember it, was you asked someone else or you went and read books, basically. That's what you did. You asked someone who claimed to know, or you went and read books about it, right? And that's what you did.
Library.
Down the library. Go and ask your dad or your friend, or have you got a book on this or that? I want to go and read it because I don't know how to do this, right? That's what you did. And then the internet came around, and then suddenly you had all this knowledge that you could search, right? Which for most people is like, well, they wouldn't even know what the world was like before the internet. But there was a world before the internet, believe it or not. And that world was very slow. That world was full of people with defective ways of doing things. And that hasn't changed that much, actually. Even though the internet is full of knowledge, not that many people search it out because they rely on what the internet tells them, and they don't actually question it, and they don't drill down into it. So even with the internet, it doesn't really make project delivery, for example, more efficient.
No. No.
AI can manage projects, and it has a database which, if I liken it to the database that I had in my first ever computer, oh my God, the world of difference. You could fit the data in my phone, probably. That data in there, you'd probably have thousands of computers that I had when I first had a computer that wouldn't come close to how much data you can store in a phone. So if you don't move with technology, you either get left behind. It doesn't mean to say what you're doing doesn't work anymore, but if there is a more efficient way of doing it, given the objectives that we have, I'm going to be pursuing the best way of doing it, everything.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, we were talking about this the other day, and a great example, I think, for the members, because the vast majority of our members are going through signature credit recoupment, aren't they? They're going through that process. One of those processes that you've outlined in the Clifford Protocol is that the reconciliation between the 945, finding the QSIPs and the reconciliation there. Up until this point, that has been a manual job, hasn't it? That has been a manual process of going out, maybe using the internet to do that, yes, but going out and searching for individual QSIP numbers. But with the introduction of Gemini and the agentic system and what you've been using that for to enhance and speed up the recoupment process and just make it more efficient, could you just explain, how has that benefited just that one individual part of the recoupment process using AI rather than doing it manually? What is it now able to do?
Well, building the system that we've now got available to us is enabling us to find from the clearing bank, the signature at the clearing bank, whatever the name of the bank is at the signature level, where the credit is being the ex nihilo credit creation part, and then linking it to the securities that the investment banks are trading, and then linking it to the tax returns, the investment bank's tax returns, which is ultimately where the recoupment is coming from. That whole A through Z process of tracking all that is now possible with a dedicated AI system that can search literally hundreds of thousands of records and identify the linkages between all of these things.
Yeah.
So when we electronically file for the recoupment on Barclays Bank mortgage that was taken out 20 years ago, the AI system will have found which security does that mortgage sit in, which investment bank is paying tax on that security, and it can link it all together so that when the recoupment, electronic recoupment filing goes in, all different aspects of the filing go in, the IRS can link it all together because they run a very similar system.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're presenting a record and a claim against that 945 tax module that it checks out. It's going to pass through the IRS's system without it being stored or stopped, because there's some breakdown in the knowledge, or there's a breakdown in the records somewhere, or there's a mistake that's been made, because it's complex. It's not easy.
No.
One of the reasons why, there's three reasons why nobody else has done this. The first reason is that no one's, in my opinion, figured out the A through Z.
No.
The second reason, even if they had figured out the A through Z, actually putting it all together, building all the components to make it work, is a pretty daunting task. And then the third reason why it hasn't been done is because it's not easy to get all the linkages together. So there's three major barriers to delivering this as a project. AI enables our members to say, I made bank payments in this bank in this year, or I had a mortgage with this bank in this year, or I started it in this year, or a credit card or a loan, or whatever it is that they had, or they set up with their signature credit. And the AI system will then track and trace all of that to the investment bank's tax return, that enables us to claim against those taxes that have been paid to the Treasury, to give the members 98 series grant or trust the recoupment which it is claiming against. So without the AI system, that would be nearly impossible, not impossible, nearly impossible to do all that manually. It's a huge amount of data research, right?
Certainly couldn't do it at scale.
You couldn't do it at scale. You could do it for 50, 100 people, and manually search all that data out, but you couldn't do it for thousands, tens of thousands. There's no way, or hundreds of thousands. There's no way you could do it. So that's one of the examples of the agentic system. But there's a lot of other advantages to it. And for members, right? Looking at it from the outside in, not the inside out, because we're all organizations suffer from looking from the inside out and not from the outside in, because their whole world is what's going on the inside, and they don't look at it from the outside because they're not on the outside, they're on the inside, right? And I'm very aware of that. So when members say things like, well, I don't know what's happening with my process, can you tell me what's happening with my process? And you and I have done interviews, and we've sent out memos, and I've done webinars, and we've sent out emails, and we still get questions coming in from the membership. It's like, well, I don't know what's happening with my process. What's happening? And you go and look into it, and the member hasn't logged into their platform for months. They haven't opened any of the emails. They didn't come on the interview. They never came to a webinar, but they want to know what's going on, right? Or worse than that, they say, well, nobody ever tells me what's going on. I have no idea because no one tells me, right? And that's often what is said. Now, I understand that we're all very busy. I completely get it. None of our members are sitting there all day long waiting for a memo to arrive from me. I'm sure that's I'm sure that's the case, right? There's lots of things happening in everyone's world. Everyone is distracted by all manner of things going on. I get it. It's life, yeah. It's there's so many distractions in this world, right? I know it. I've got distractions. Everyone's got distractions, right? Things that are going on. So in order to get people's attention in the fastest possible way and deliver the information in the easiest possible way is the Ian Clifford avatar.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that. Talk to me about that, because we're talking here about a 24/7 interactive avatar that is available in any country, in any time zone. How do you feel that will help the members? How do you feel that would build trust? How do you feel that would, create more consistency than just the traditional methods that we've been using, or even having some kind of a human support desk? Because many members have often said, why haven't you got a support desk? There doesn't seem to be a support team. It doesn't seem to be a number I can ring or anything of that nature.
Well, the reason why we've never had we actually did have a customer services department at one stage a few years ago. And what happens is, again, because I have experience of working with very high numbers of customers, if you run a customer services desk, what you actually do is you train your customers to only ever ask the customer services desk what's going on. They never look anywhere else. No. In the old days, they would ring up customer services. So you could send them a memo, you could send them information, you could give them an internet portal where they could log in and see what was going on. But if you gave them a customer services, then 8 out of 10 of your customers would ring up the customer services.
Yeah.
Because it was easier just to ask someone else to go and find out what's going on with your thing that you were doing than it was to actually go and look on your platform or your internet account or go and look at the letter or the email that's explained it all to you, right?
Why find it out myself when I can get someone to do it for me? Yeah.
Yeah. So then what you end up with is, and literally you end up with a whole floor, because back in the day when people used to go to an office, you'd have a whole floor of customer services agents. And all they did all day long is answer the phone to your customers who are asking questions that the customer could have easily found out the answer if they'd only looked on the letter, the email, or on the internet portal that they'd been given. Because I had an internet portal years ago for what we were doing years and years ago. So you by doing customer services desks, you actually train your customers to be lazy. Bottom line.
Okay. Yeah.
They don't look where they could look to get the information. It's easier for them just to, I'm going back now, WhatsApp wasn't around. We didn't have all these technologies. We had the telephone. We had the internet and the telephone, right? So it was easier to pick up the phone to customer services than it was looking on your portal, because you had to remember your password, you go into it, you had to look around, you had to find the section that you were looking for, you had to read it, you had to understand what it meant. Well, that was far too difficult for most people. So they would much easier just ring up the customer services rep and say, what's going on with my, whatever it was they were doing, right? And I learned back then, if you're going to grow an organization at scale, do you really want 50 customer services staff? Not really, because what are they doing that is productive in terms of developing the organization? Not much. They're just an information portal, really. It's a very expensive way of communicating with your customers. There's got to be a better way of doing it, right? So the Ian Clifford avatar, there are 3 aspects to it. Number one, it's a knowledge base. So everything that I've written in the last 6 months to a year in ecclesial law, most people aren't aware of it, but there's over 60 research papers I've written.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of deep research has gone into them. Every webinar that I've presented, every Q&A that I've done with you, Andy, every interaction I've had on a technical matter is being stored in a database. So Ian Clifford avatar should know the answer in the same way that I know the answers. When people ask me questions, after a webinar or during a webinar, I don't say, well, hold on a minute, I'll come back to you on that because I don't know the answer. In fact, I've never, ever done that because I know the answer. I literally know the answers, right? There's no question I've ever been asked that I don't know the answer to, that I can remember. So that knowledge is because my brain is filled with stuff that is relevant to what we're doing, right? Plus, I've written it down. And even though I might have forgotten some tax reference number or some technical legislative, piece of legislation or act or statute, it's in my writings.
It's documented,
It's documented. So if you could talk with Ian Avatar that is using an AI system to extract all that information and deliver it to you, I'd actually argue that could be better than talking to me directly, because I might have forgotten something that the avatar hasn't, right? That will be yet to see that, and maybe people will say that they actually prefer the avatar to deliver the webinar, not me. Who knows? But we might get to that at some point.
That would give you a Saturday morning off then, wouldn't it, on the odd occasion? No, I get that. But I mean, I get it. I understand the kind of the concept and the structure of how it works, like you said, you've got a wealth of knowledge, but you don't always at any one point in time have immediate access to that knowledge, because it may have been a report you wrote months ago or a couple of years ago, and there might be something that's quite crucial. Could be a technical reference, could be, like you said, if it's to do with the art of legal warfare, it could be something to do with a case history. You might remember the case, but you might not remember the case number, the date. There's lots of small, minute detail that, let's be fair, none of us in reality are going to remember every single minute detail of that nature from multiple years ago across hundreds of reports.
My brain works on joining the big dots together, and it's very fast at doing that. And then it doesn't need to know all the detail. My brain is very logical, as all of our brains are, I'm sure. My brain doesn't need to know the date of this, that, the other happened. It just needs to know it happened, because it happened means something, right? The AI will know what happened, why it happened, and all the dates that when it happened, right?
Yeah.
So that's the difference between the human brain and an AI. An AI will know everything. It might not know that. It might not know why it's important. It might not know why, but it will know what it is. It will know how it happened. It's getting pretty good at knowing why, actually. I can now, because I've loaded up all my technical documents into it and I've got it to search things. It's pretty good now at knowing why. I mean, early this morning, I rewrote one of my research reports using what's called deep research on Gemini, Google Gemini, and I loaded up all my existing research into it, and I said, I want you to rewrite this and tell me why it's important. And it rewrote it and told me why it was important. So it is actually getting pretty good at why as well. So if I was looking at it brand new, right? If I'm a brand new member, I've never come to a webinar. I don't know anything about what we're doing here at Republic of Old Souls. And I have got I don't know, 5 seconds, 10 seconds decision to make. Do I look into this any further? Or do I just go and look somewhere else, or go and do something else? What's happening at the moment in the growth of our organization is that what people are doing is they're having a look at Republic of Old Souls, Ian Clifford, and then their first reaction is, let's go and find out about these guys, right? Go straight on the internet, type in Ian Clifford, type in Republic of Old Souls, boom, Ian's convicted criminal, Ian's a fraudster, the organization is, basically a pseudo law, free man on the land, load of nutters in a cult. That are all over there, in some sort of loony asylum. That's the picture you get if you look on the internet. And then most of the very new people to what we're doing would turn away from that very quickly.
Straight away. Yeah, I get it.
Straight away. So if they had Ian Clifford avatar and they were directed to it and they wanted to know a little bit more, they could, and it's got a menu of things that they could ask it. One of those things is, why is there so much negative propaganda about Ian? It's going to tell you. If you want to know what Ian's just presented on the last webinar, because it's on the list of things you could choose from, it's going to tell you what that webinar was about and why you might be interested. If you want to know, what's the reason why signature credit works, it's going to tell you. If you want to know how it works, it's going to list it all out for you. It's going to tell you, you do this, you do that, you do the other, A through Z, and you've got the job done. And then you flip it into, it becomes the customer services rep. right?
Yeah, this is the bit I wanted to talk about as well. It's not just, I know we have a knowledge gap. You know, there's definitely a knowledge gap between what members understand and comprehend about the protocols versus the reality of of how they work and why they work. So people can ask those kind of questions. I get that. And I think that will encourage people because it's going to be more accessible. Maybe people don't want to go to ecclesial law and read a 13-page report on, you know, on signature recoupment, but they can ask questions, get an answer, ask questions, and get into a dialogue and start to learn maybe in a more interactive, more fun way, which is great. But I'm really keen to understand and know how this is going to benefit members from what's happening with my 2022 bank payment recoupments. That, I think, that is the most asked question
It
across the
is,
board.
absolutely. So, as I've said on all the webinars, there's always a solution to every problem. We have had for a long time a problem with the membership, which is large, actually knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
Not because we don't bother to tell people what's going on, but telling people what's going on and people knowing what's going on are two very different things.
Yes.
Because there's misinformation, there's lack of focus, there's didn't get the email, didn't get the memo, didn't go on Ian's webinar. I heard from somebody else, this is what's going on, which could be completely false information. There's propaganda. We've had WhatsApp groups that were set up by members where there's loads of propaganda and misinformation swirling about. So that's like rumor mongering, Chinese whispers. I heard on the grapevine that, you know, Ian's now on Mars and, you know, he's got the intergalactic force chasing him in their spaceships and, you know, all manner of stuff that is being talked about. Yeah. No matter how ridiculous it is. I've heard some stories that have come to me. It's like, well, that sounds like it should be in a movie. It should be like in a science fiction movie. It's got no basis of reality at all. But these things start off, they get a momentum, all manner of crazy stuff. And then you've got the other problem, which is the saboteurs. You've got people like David Ayerist, who was, he's not so much now, but it was pumping out all sorts of misinformation. You've got Dan Needle, who is, you know, pumping out loads of misinformation about me and about what we're doing. And then you've got just genuine misunderstandings of people who come on the webinar. They bother to, you know, to invest an hour and a half, 2 hours of their Saturday or whichever day the webinar is being presented, and they genuinely don't join the dots up. Maybe they were distracted when I said something really important. Maybe they went and answered the door or took a phone call or got distracted by something. And the very thing that they wanted to know that I said on the webinar, they didn't get it. They didn't listen to it. They weren't listening because of some distraction. And then, you know, their view is, well, that was a waste of time, wasn't it? Ian didn't even tell us what was going on. But I did, but they didn't hear me say it. Or I did say it, and maybe they didn't understand what I meant. Because, you know, let's just go into this for 30 seconds, right? I remember many years ago watching another documentary where there was a road accident. And there were 3 witnesses to the road accident. And they questioned each one individually about what happened in the road accident, right? In the collision. And there were 3 completely different versions of the same collision. Now, when things like that go on, and each 3 witnesses were adamant that their version of what happened was exactly how it happened. And then they had cameras and they played it and said, well, actually, this is the recording of the collision. What you've said isn't what happened, is it? And then they went, well, I could have sworn blind it happened the way I said it happened, because their view of it was for whatever reason, it wasn't actually what happened. So on a webinar, I might say that it's X, Y, and Z, and they might not hear X, Y, and Z. They might hear ABC, not XYZ.
Yeah.
Because they want to hear ABC, they don't want to hear XYZ. And that's another problem. So you put all of these problems together, and my solution to that, and then just make it one more piece of information. You can give people a platform and say everything you need to know is in there.
Yeah.
And then people say, well, I couldn't log in because I forgot my password. I couldn't remember which email address that I used to go in there, even though all you've got to do is put your email address in to log in. But I've got 10 email addresses and I couldn't remember which one it was, so I gave up. Yeah. Or I get in the platform and I start looking around, but it's all moved about because there's been some amendments made, and I can't remember where
been on it for the last 6 months.
Yeah. And then I click into the section that I want to find, and the layout's changed. It's moved, and I'm not understanding where to look now. And even though there might be a video in there that says, "Play me, and I'll show you where to find the information," maybe I didn't see that video, or maybe I didn't have time, or maybe I couldn't be bothered to play that little video that explains how to find stuff. So there's lots and lots of reasons why the information doesn't find its destination, and people don't have knowledge. The gap in knowledge is one of our biggest problems. We have an internal knowledge gap and we have an external knowledge gap. The internal gap is because a lot of our team know what they know. They don't know what I know. And I can't show them what I know or teach them what I know because I can't go around to everybody and teach everybody individually.
No. It's
impossible. And I'm not going to do that anyway, because that would take me away from my focus on what I'm working on. And then we've got an external knowledge gap, which is the members have got a knowledge gap in what are we doing, how are we doing it, and why are we doing it. Yeah, because there is a knowledge gap there, as evidenced by the questions that come in on the webinars that you and I go through each week. And then you've got another knowledge gap, which is people that are actually they're going through the journey of the Great Escape protocols, and they don't know what's going on because they don't look, or they do look and they don't see, or they hear but they don't listen.
Yeah.
So my solution to all of those problems is we give them the Ian Clifford avatar, which they can have on their phone, they can have it on their tablet or their computer, and if they want to ask a question, it's just like ringing up the customer services desk back in the old days.
Yeah.
What's happening with this? And then the avatar is going to look on the platform, it's going to know what's happening, and it's going to say, your process, whatever it is that you're doing, is at this stage. And you could then say, well, why isn't it completed? And it's going to say, because you haven't given us the form that we're looking for, or the answer we're looking for. And we've written to you 4 times, but you haven't replied. Because that is quite often what happens, right?
It is, yeah.
It is quite often.
Or in defense of the member, it might be that we've turned around and said, well, that's because the IRS has made a mistake and we're now waiting on them, or something of that nature. But they'll know exactly where they're at in their individual process, because the AI can scour the platform.
So here's the thing, right? Bottom line, and I know the answer, right? If I did a webinar this Saturday, and the webinar was titled "Your Personal Audience with Ian," right? One-on-one audience with Ian, right? I think that we'd have a very high percentage, the overwhelming majority of the members would say, when can I book in half an hour with Ian?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that would be very popular. If I said for the next year, I've got 30-minute slots available, you can book in with Ian for 30 minutes. I'm pretty sure my diary would be filled up for the whole year.
Yeah.
pretty confident that would be the case. And I know that. And let me tell you why I know that. 3 years ago, we did a conference in Epsom, and we did it at the last minute, right?
Yeah.
And I said, let's do a conference on the Freedom Plan and see if the members warm to the plan, right? And we published it. We sent out an email, and it was only 4 days before we actually ran the event. 4 days before we sent the email out, and it was we didn't charge money for tickets, but it was oversubscribed within the first day, right?
Yeah.
Then when we got to the event, which was in Epsom, there were people queued up outside before we even started to get in.
Yeah.
And even when we started, and there was only, I think, 130 people could get in this particular presentation room, with some other people as well, as people, our team that was already there, members, about 130. There were people queued up outside trying to get in.
Yeah.
Now, I did a whole day of different presentations. There were some other speakers as well. And at the end of the day, I said, if you want to come and have a chat with me about anything, I'll stay here. What, man, I mean, nearly everybody in the hall queued up to come and have a chat with me. With hardly any exceptions. There was a line of people from one end of the room that we were in, big room, all the way out the door of people who wanted to have a chat with me about something.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that because I'm trying to feed my ego, but they wanted to talk to me. They listened to me present webinars for years. They have trusted me to do, to get them the result. And they wanted to have a chat with me about something. It was all different things. And I could have stood there for hours and hours and hours. In the end, I had to cut it short because we had to go. There was a social event going on where people had been invited to. I had to go there because I was standing up in front of the room, inviting them to the social event. So I couldn't not get there. So I had to cut that session short. So now let's imagine that if you're watching this as a member, you would be able to access the Ian Clifford avatar, whether you're in Australia, Canada, New Zealand, United States, UK, or even in Trinidad and Tobago. Because we've got members in the, all different through the Commonwealth. Any time of the day or night, you could ask Ian Clifford avatar what is going on with your Great Escape protocols. You could ask the avatar what Ian's just presented a webinar about whatever the problem and solution is. Give me a summary of what that's about. Yeah. Or go deep into technical. If you really want to go deep into the technical reasons why what we're doing works, you can go deep. You can go deeper and deeper because the knowledge base will enable you to do that. If you're an advocate and you want to introduce someone, because I think this is another big part of it. If you're talking to someone, and I've had people come to me and say, Ian, it's like, how can I introduce what Republic of Old Souls, formerly Matrix Freedom, is doing to my friend who wants to know about it? Can you give me a script? Can you give me like a paragraph that I could read out to them, or give me something I could say to them? And it's like, well, where do I start? I don't know what they're interested in. I don't know what their area of interest is. So I can't give you anything. But if you had an avatar and you could say to your friend, your co-worker, your acquaintance, or even on social media, if you want to know about the cost of living crisis, click on this link and ask Ian how to solve it. And Ian avatar is going to tell you about that. Yep. If you're an advocate and you can send that link out, and then that person you're sending the link to, or the social media platform you're on, is going to get that link, and 50 people decide that they're going to come to Ian's next webinar, which isn't on the avatar yet because he hasn't done it yet, right? So you're going to have to come to the webinar because that webinar's not in the avatar yet. No. Yeah. Then you'll be able to get those reward points, which we've just recently launched. Yeah, we have. And maybe you're going to get a lot of people that would come to the next webinar because they can now see the reason why what I talk about is generally, but with the majority of people that come, very well liked, and there's a lot of very positive feedback. There's only a small minority of people that come on webinars that actually have something negative to say. And generally speaking, the negative is not about what I'm presenting, it's about what's going on with my process. That's where the negative is.
Yeah, for sure. So what you're saying here is that in real time, a member can not only access the knowledge base of everything that you've put together across all protocols front to back, but that they can also access the system that we have and find out where they are individually at in their personal process. And if they're an advocate, that means that they're basically, they now have a genius level tool that they can use as an Ian Clifford avatar that they can present to somebody else that can bridge the knowledge gap that maybe they've got, which, you know, maybe there's been some confidence level issues there in them even wanting to promote or pass information out because maybe they're scared about getting asked certain questions and not knowing the answer to those questions. Now they'll have a tool at their fingertips that they can pass out that anybody can access who's interested and get their questions answered based on previous webinars, based on the knowledge base. I mean, I can't see why members wouldn't want this. I really can't.
Well, I remember many years ago, and I mentioned this to you before, that when I was providing solutions to wealth management firms, I used to go on a roadshow. I did it every year, and I went round to literally hundreds of wealth management firms that were promoting my solutions to their clients, right? And I would go and do, back in the day, it was like a seminar. So sometimes it would be in a hotel, other times it would be in their offices, because they have big offices, some of these guys, and all of their staff that were interested in coming would come, and I would present the range of solutions that we used to promote to the wealth managers for them to promote to their own clients. And at the end of the seminar, I used to say to, please ask some questions. And I don't remember ever having no questions. There was normally like loads of questions because I'm telling them things that they didn't already know. So they wanted to ask me lots of questions, right? And then I would get nearly every single time I would get, Ian, yeah, it's amazing what you're bringing to us and we really love it, but we can't explain it to our clients like you can. So could you come back next week and we'll bring all of our clients in that are interested in this solution that you've just told us about. And you can do all the meetings with those clients. Wouldn't that be good? And I'd say no, because I haven't got, I'm next week I'm in somewhere else in the UK doing this seminar. And I can't talk to all your clients and give them all my, I can't explain it all to them because I can't be everywhere at once. That was 25 years ago, 25 years ago, right? Now, the avatar will now enable me to be everywhere at once. Not me, but my knowledge, right? Now, I don't want to sound arrogant, and I'm going to try and say this quite carefully, but I have got unique knowledge. I literally don't believe that there's anybody else with the knowledge that I've got. I literally don't believe there is. Because I have come from a professional background where I won awards for my technical ability. I brought that professional technical ability into this, what we're doing here. I have done very, very deep research in everything we're doing. And I understand it. I get it, right? I don't have to look at things 20 times to figure them out. My brain is wired up where I get things fast. That combination of my professional background and everything I did in the investment banking world and the structured products world and the investment management world and the insurance world and all of those things that I did back then, that I became one of the leading voices in everything I did, right? Again, I'm not trying to big myself up.
No, you just context. I get it.
I used to lecture on the subjects that I knew about. I've done live radio shows, national shows, talking about subjects that I knew about. People used to invite me to speak at their conferences. I once did a 6-month tour in the United States, talking about the pension deficit and how to solve it with longevity assets. 6 months, I went all over the US, talking to actuaries, talking to financial professionals. Because when I get into something, I have to know how it works. I can't just leave it like, oh, well, I vaguely understand that. That's good enough for me. I have to know the A through Z of everything, right? That's how my brain works. So my knowledge is pretty unique. One of the reasons why the cabal, the establishment is afraid of me is because they know that I'm one of the few guys out there who can actually figure out how to solve all these problems. Now, I don't want to sound arrogant, but that's just like if you were to go and ask a composer, go and ask Beethoven, go and ask Chopin, go and ask, Leonardo da Vinci, did they know that they were any good at what they did? They probably say privately, yeah, kind of know I was quite good at that. I could kind of do that Sistine Chapel. I could do that thing, right? But you go and ask them to do something else, it'd be frigging hopeless, right? What we're doing here is exactly what I'm good at, right?
Yeah.
It is my skill set. So if you can put that into an avatar, even if it's only 70% of what I can do, it's better than waiting for Ian to do a webinar who might not answer the question that you've got.
It sure is. I only see an upside to this. And if you're watching, guys, if you're watching on social media, just drop us a thumbs up or a like or a heart if you agree with that. We value the feedback as well because it's important, but we're trying to improve as we go. This is a pathway that nobody's trodden before. There's no manual to any of this. We just have Ian and his knowledge base in terms of what's being accomplished. And I think to have that amount of knowledge at the fingertips of all the members leaves no excuses. It just doesn't, in my opinion. And I actually think that would be something that will be very, very well received, Ian.
Well, I'm hoping so. I mean, I announced it on Telegram a few days ago, and lots of people have read it and put thumbs up. So I think it's well received, right? There's one more thing that it's going to do, and this is also really, really big, a part of my plan. Every Saturday, I'm presenting a problem and a solution, right? So I've just presented the landlord tax problem, how to solve that. A few weeks before, I did the council tax problem. I did the pension liberation problem. There's many of them. They're on our website. All of our webinars are on the on a central website, which we've published in many areas for people to click onto it. Now, if you think about how do we deliver those solutions? So let's take mortgage foreclosure, right? So we have and this Saturday I'm doing void mortgage, right? So I'm explaining how you can void your mortgage, right? And it's not a theory. It's not a sort of blue sky webinar which let's dream up some fantastic idea that's got no merit to it. It's based on things that I know work, right? Now, in order to deliver it, because I'd like the audience that's watching this to come from the outside and look at it from the inside. So it's very easy to look at everything from the outside onto the inside. And I now want you to look at it from the inside out. So, right, you're now me. And I've just presented, you're me. And I've heard you deliver to me a webinar that says that I can void my mortgage. And I'm watching that webinar thinking, wow, this is amazing. I'd love to get on and do that.
Yep.
So I'm now giving you the job. Deliver that to me. Deliver it. Make it all happen.
Yeah.
How would you do that? Would you better do it? If you could do it, What would you have to do in order to make that happen? A through Z, not for one person, for hundreds, thousands of people, right? Could be tens of thousands, could be hundreds of thousands. So that's your job now. I'm just giving you a job. You're watching this. Go and figure that out and deliver it. Not looking so easy now, is it? If you turn it around, right? Right, so this is so now we reverse back our roles. I'm now Ian and you are whoever you are. And how we're going to deliver these problem and solutions is with a combination of an AI with an avatar. So you want to avoid your mortgage, as I'm going to be explaining this Saturday. There is a process involved in doing it. You have to issue documents. You have to do things. Well, you could either rely on Republic of Old Souls administrators to do it all for you, but that would be highly risky. And we wouldn't want to do it like that because that might be seen as legal advice.
Yep.
And I'm sure my friends in the FCA would love to say, got him now. He's now giving legal advice.
Oh, they'd love for you to go down that path. I don't think the members would love for that to happen, though. So,
and then they'd go, look, we told you, we've been telling you for years, this guy offers regulated legal advice, financial advice, tax advice, and here's the evidence. He's doing it for all of these members he's got here. Now we can put him in jail, throw the key away, and actually we can bury the jail he's in because he's never coming out of there, right? And that's literally what they would want, and that's what they would be. They'd probably have a party. They'd probably have champagne corks flying everywhere that they finally got me. They got me in jail, and he's never coming out again. And I'm sure there would be a few champagne corks going off if that were the case, right? Because that would solve their big problem, right? That I'm the whistleblower and I'm that dangerous guy that they don't really want anyone to listen to. So by getting rid of me, that would be, I'm sure that would be a happy day for them if they ever achieved it. So the solution is an AI that with an avatar. So you can say, if you were doing a void mortgage, okay, Ian, what do I do now? What's the first thing I do? And it says, well, you do this. And you say, well, okay, how do I do that? And it says, you do it like this. And then you go to your AI and you say, I need to do this and that. Create the document for me that does this and that.
Yeah.
It's going to create it for you. And then something comes in from whoever it is you're interacting with. And you say, right, what do I do with this, Ian? It says, what, load it up into your AI. And your AI is going to give you guidance on what to do with it. And then you say, well, I was having a chat with somebody in the bank because I had a chat with somebody in the complaints department or the court, and they said, well, the problem is that you say this, that, and the other, and we don't recognize this, that, and the other. So you come and have a chat with Ian on the avatar. Yeah. And Ian, the avatar, says that's nonsense. They're not telling you about X, Y, Z, ABC. Go to the AI and it will print out all the documents that will defeat their bullshit because they're basically using bullshit against you. And you can then manage the whole A through Z process of voiding a mortgage, working with Republic of Old Souls to do your signature credit, to do your asset fortress trust setup, to do your envoy protocol, to provide you with the freedom plan. So you're now managing your void mortgage process using an AI and using an Ian Clifford avatar. You're doing your council tax. You're doing your tax, your landlord tax process. You're doing your pension liberation. You're doing all of the webinars I've done, problem and solution webinars. You're now doing the bit that you can do with Ian's help through the avatar, which, by the way, FCA, if you're watching, is not legal advice, and it's not financial advice, and it's definitely not me doing it, because in 2017, I built algorithmic trading systems, and licensed them to a fund management firm, 3 actually, and they attacked the wealth management and fund management firm, saying that it was Ian managing the money. And I proved in the High Court in 2017 it wasn't Ian managing the money. It was an algorithm that managed the money that Ian's architectural skills built, and they lost in the High Court.
Yeah.
And avatars and AIs are not providing advice. They can do forensic research, they can guide you, they can create documents. Ultimately, it is the user. So just take the example. If you go and sit in your car and drive it down the road, is it the car or you driving? It's you, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's imagine that you programmed a AI system to drive your car down the road, and the car smashed into something, or worse, killed a pedestrian. Who is going to be charged with murder or manslaughter? Is it you that programmed the AI to drive the car? No. That's the test. You put your knowledge into the AI, so that's me putting my knowledge into the AI and into the avatar, but you couldn't take Ian Avatar or Ian the AI system to court and say that he caused the problem, because I just programmed it. I just put my knowledge into it because you used it. It's the user that is responsible, not the knowledge that's been the person or the organization that's put the knowledge into the system. And I proved that in the High Court and won against the FCA with that.
So, I mean, moving forwards and final thoughts, Ian, you know, for me, I see an era of manual work coming to an end in that regard. There's going to be things that we will still need to manually do, but certainly the hurdles that we've been facing through doing things manually is starting to come to an end. And I hope, guys, that we've shown you today, you know, that we are engineering something that has efficiency as the default state to it. That's what we're looking at doing here, and that you'll have the necessary tools in place yourselves as well to see where you're at in your process, to promote the Republic of Old Souls and the protocols with confidence, and have a knowledge base that surpasses anyone else that would ever be able to help you with this, aside from Ian personally. And the goal with all of this is, as we've said, is to scale to 500,000 envoys for the Republic of Old Souls as a nation, so we can fully roll out the Freedom Plan. That is the goal. So while we may be having to embrace AI, maybe you don't agree with it, maybe you do, maybe you're fearful of it, maybe you're not, but this is coming, this is happening, this is Ian's vision, and we're all embracing it, and we hope that you embrace it too. Final thoughts, Ian, before we wrap up.
There's 3 key benefits to it, and then I'll finish off with my longer term vision for it, right? So the first benefit is our organization works far more efficiently. We get all of our projects done more efficiently, and people have they have more satisfaction in what they are doing because they're getting it right quicker.
Yeah.
And they get satisfaction out of that because they don't have the stress of Ian's breathing down my neck to get projects delivered, because they're getting them delivered within the time frame and maybe before the time frame that Ian wants them to deliver in, right? So it takes that stress away, right? You know, and we've already experienced this in how we've rolled it out so far. For the early adopters of it, that's exactly what's happened. Less stress, less anxiety about, I haven't delivered what Ian wants yet, and I know he's not going to be happy. They're happy. So our internal team should embrace this, because it will help them to get their job done more efficiently, in line with expectations. The Ian won't be happy thoughts shouldn't be there anymore, right?
No.
That's one benefit, right? For the members, getting information about new members, getting information about what it is we're doing, how we're doing it, and why does it work. For brand new people, it's going to be off the chart better than what we're doing now, in my view, right?
Yeah.
If you are an existing member or an advocate, you're going to be able to share what we're doing with other people much easier than you currently do, because you're going to be able to give them access to the Ian avatar. And if you are looking for information about what is going on, that you've enrolled, you're on the journey, what's going on, that's going to be much easier. And then the other benefit is, if you want to manage your own process, which is what you've been doing anyway, you're going to have an avatar and an AI to work with, which doesn't just know generically. It's not like just going to chat GPT and saying, I want to void my mortgage, please help me, because that's going to come back with a whole load of nonsense, right? It's going to know exactly what you want to do, and it's going to know exactly how you should do it, because that's the information it's being put in there. So it's not just like, oh, Ian, I've got my own AI, Ian, so what do I need your one for? It's not like that. Our one is being developed for the precise purpose that you want to use it for. It's not just like, well, I can go on Chat GPT or Grok or any of these other ones, or Copilot or whatever the other ones are. There's loads of them out there. What do I need your one for? It's like, well, our one is bespoke for the job. That's why you need it.
Exactly. So what's your bigger vision, Ian?
Well, the bigger vision is when we've got 500,000 envoys, is to run all of our infrastructure with our own AI. We actually program our own AI. At the moment, we're renting an AI because Google has an AI system that is very, very smart and has cost hundreds of millions of dollars to develop. But we can create our own one. We literally can program our own version of our own AI, that all of our envoys who want to know want to know anything about what's going on in the community, what's going on in the world of the Republic of Old Souls, with free energy, with food, with water, with health, with the Monopoly board, the art of legal warfare. We'll have our own AI system running on our own servers, with our own communication channel, with our own internet, with our own power. We don't need the cabal's AI. We don't need their systems. We have our own.
Amazing. Amazing.
We'll
have to add that one to the we'll have to add that part to the freedom plan in terms of our own AI. We'll link that in with the internet and the communication side of things, I think. Well, Ian, I appreciate you jumping on. I know it's been another in-depth interview, but it's necessary. I only see positive things coming from the challenges that we've faced. And I hope the members can see that we're doing everything in our power to make sure that we do deliver, because that is what we're here for. We're not sitting back on our laurels. We're working very hard. But as you pointed out, sometimes the hard work is not the smart work. So we're trying to improve things. We're trying to get smarter at what we do, more efficient at what we do, quicker at what we do, so that we can get you all the end result that everybody, so dearly wants, ourselves included. Because without those back-end recoupments coming in, the freedom plan is not going to start and roll out. We simply cannot roll it out. We won't have the time or the resources to be able to do that. And if we can't roll the freedom plan out, none of this is worth doing in the first place. It just isn't. So really excited for what lies ahead, Ian. Thanks for the update. And I hope you guys have enjoyed that. If you're watching us on social media, thank you for joining us. And we will see you all on the next episode. Have a great day. Bye for now.
Bye for now.